Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm BobbyFi, back with my man Eric Sheets-Haber, coming off of what I would call, for me, an addict, like not a great night. I ended up losing just a little bit, but I felt like there was some things, Eubanks has a decent game. I think I pretty much crush. I went heavy on that late Spurs news as would have benefited me in previous slates, not this one. It sounds like Sheets did a little bit better. Real quickly, I want to mention we're going to be doing a combo show. Draftkings will do Fanduel at the end of this show. So if you want to just watch Fanduel, we'll probably have it on a little bit later on. I'll put it a time stamp on in the notes. But yeah, we're going to start off with DraftKings and Fanduel. And Sheets, first thoughts on the slate. What happened yesterday? Give me an idea.
So yesterday, I did pretty well. For those of you that were here, I mean, I mentioned I wasn't going to play that many lineups on DraftKings, but Fanduel, I thought there was the possibilities of a lot of different guys getting there. So I ended up playing, a bunch of for me, like a bunch of lineups, like a full 40 lineups in that 777. And it ended up profiting. I had a couple of chances to do whatever. And look, we can make excuses, but, if one or two guys did better, I would have, done a little bit better, but obviously that's the case. And, it's funny, I was reviewing, like the winning lineup with Bobby, just for example, and he reminded me of something really important, So I was looking at the winning lineup and I saw, boy, oh boy, like all these guys seem so logical. All you really had to do was come up with the Josh Jackson and maybe a Brogdon. But he reminded me that like it's easy to say like kind of after the fact, but you really need to put in these 150 lineups to really spread yourself out enough to get these combinations sometimes. So it's not as easy to say, boy, oh boy, all these guys look kind of popular. So why don't I just if I had just made these two pivots, it's just not as easy. Remember, you're dealing with one, two, like 9 positions. So it's not so easy to say, oh, just these two is really all I needed, because this is just one of probably 150 lineups. So that is 100% true. It's just not so easy to say, oh, just these two guys would have done it for me. But I guess that's all I had to say about that.
Yeah, and that's the big, $7 tournament. I mean, look. There's a few ways that breaks, and you could win that tournament. That's one thing to feel optimistic about. And you're not playing a million lineups. There is something to be said also about lineup construction when you think about this stuff. Playing 4 of the Cavs and not running it back is something that's maybe a little counterintuitive, and probably not usually the best optimal thing, especially on a non-full slate, like a 7-gamer. But at the same time, the thing he did do with this lineup that's a little different is everybody. Well, sure, there's chalk here. There was major chalk that's not in this lineup too. And most of his, his more chalky guys were in the 20, 27, 21%, 17%, 11%. It's easier to mix if you're going to play a bunch of guys like that. Usually we end up playing 1 or 2 guys at 40 to 60% because the value insists or forces us to do so. McCollum seemed like that guy yesterday, but even then people did not entirely go to him because there were so many good plays. So just worth keeping in mind, but remembering to try and continue to differentiate when you're playing giant field tournaments, because unless you have the 150, to get that exact perfect right when everybody's playing it is going to be tough, unless you're going to make that Jackson pivot.
So to show you something funny, so these are my lineups. So I ended up, as I said, I got lucky on DraftKings, is that the lineup I did the best on happened to be in the bigger single entry. I guess I just want to show you, this is probably not the right like ownership thing for a single entry tournament. Like this is how I ended up cashing. And I didn't think of it this way, but look at all this freaking off the board crap I ended up with in this lineup. I just happen to have really liked this. And I guess this, again, from a construction perspective, this to me looks more like a tournament entry in like in a larger field tournament. So I would not identify this as a really good single entry tournament build. It happened to end up doing decently enough, but to come in 33rd, which basically made up for all my, it basically profited me for the day on DraftKings. But this was a pretty, I mean, all these 2%, 4%, 9%, 5%ers. I really didn't expect all this to be that off the board, and probably not the greatest single entry construction that you can come up with. Like I would much rather, again, it wouldn't have worked out for me, but I think that if I knew what these ownerships were going to be, this would probably be more of an ownership play in like a real large field type GPP,
Yeah, completely agree. And I want to point out that while I was anti-Joval last night, I wasn't anti him. I was anti the ownership on him. I did end up playing like about, I think 15 or 20% of him. I was way below the field. And it looked like he was going to haunt me. But, they blew him out.
But they blew him out. Yep.
In that game, I actually thought Atlanta was going to win that game. But those games can play so many different ways, and you know, it didn't work out. I got lucky there, but at the same time, sometimes you need to get lucky to win tournaments. So having said all that, let's get into tonight's slate because it's a good one, and I like some of the tournament entries. I'm actually going to be going up to Santa Barbara, so I don't know if I'll be max entering the 222 or anything, but I'm certainly going to get some entries in because I really like certain aspects of the slate that I think, again, are going to be just overlooked. So what are your first thoughts, and then let's get into the first game.
Yeah, one thing, and we're going to get to a game like this later, but again, one more post-mortem real quick from yesterday is I don't remember exactly what ended up happening in the game, but I'm pretty sure that Chicago game ended up being on the close side.
Yeah.
And again, the Knick game ended up being on the close. What's that?
Chicago won.
Chicago did win. So again, as I mentioned yesterday, it's when a team loses its best player, you'd be surprised how often, you know what I mean, the rest of the team just rallies around him and just kind of finds a way, you know. So just keep that in mind before you start like projecting these blowouts with
especially
the guys with
on the road,
missing guys.
Especially for teams on the road missing their second best player and their third best player. Right. I never understood that. Everybody on every show I was on later in the day, people were like, what are you talking about? You know, they're going to blow them out without these guys. I'm like, this is a really big assumption. And I'm the first guy to usually say I'm a little worried about this game blowing out. I was not worried about that one.
Okay.
All right, let's get into the first one.
Okay, so my overall view of the slate is really weird because, you know, what I did, again, because I knew we were going to do this early today, what I did was I made some lineups and picks based on like my own assessment of things before any real projections and content came out. And it was a little disturbing to me because the guys that I felt I was going to end up targeting ended up being in totals that were like 30 points lower than like some of these games. Like for example, you'll see like New Orleans and Minnesota's got like a 2 billion point total. And New Orleans is like a 2 billion point total. And at first look, I didn't find that that's where I was going. It's just where my individual plays go. And then, but then as we get into today and the projections come out, I'm like, boy, maybe I should get a little exposure there or something like that. So that was my initial thought going into today. And we'll see how it goes. But I think I might have some interesting takes in some of these games.
Yeah, I totally agree. And by the way, just pointing out, the lowest total of the day was the team you needed all the points from yesterday, which was the Cleveland Utah game. So don't worry about totals. Worry about condensed usage. Worry about totals, obviously, to some extent. But if you're going to have 12 guys playing in a high total, I mean, look at the Knicks and Rockets last night.
Yep.
It's not like we really needed players from either of those teams, and they put up the highest total on the board by a long shot. So, I mean, you could have used some of them, but you don't need it. You definitely didn't need any of them to win a tournament. Sure. Okay, let's get into the first one of the night because this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. I think it's very hard not to have interest in some spots in this game, especially on the Charlotte side with everybody out. Just for those of you who haven't heard, Devontae Graham is out. We already have Malik Monk out. That is an incredible amount of usage. And now Charlotte plays incredibly slow. When I saw the total of this game, I actually thought about taking the under right away. I still think this is a great spot for DFS.
Yeah, so my view on this game is this. So with Devontae Graham out and obviously Malik Monk gone for this, I guess, the season or whatever it is. This is exactly what happens. You take that kind of usage away, and this becomes like a classic DFS type idea. You know what I mean? Like, forget the total, forget all that other stuff. I mean, the points have to come from somewhere, and the usage has to come from somewhere. So the way I kind of broke this down is this. So the most obvious and obviously a really, really tough thing to fade is Terry Rozier, right? So yeah, he's not we could argue whether he's a good player or not, but the fact of the matter is that without Devontae Graham, he's going to be playing infinite minutes. He's going to have the ball almost every time down that he's in the game, on the floor, right? And so it's going to be very difficult for him not to have a good game at 6,100, except for the fact that he could just be, having an efficient game, and that just kind of comes with the territory sometimes. But so he looks like the obvious play that's kind of a combination. Someone has some skill that's going to have the ball in his hands. He's going to have extra usage because of the absence of Devontae Graham. Now, the next categories of players I go to is number one is kind of like what I call the quote-unquote good players, right, that are just going to benefit from Graham not being there, meaning that their minutes may get up a little bit, but it's more just the fact that there's one less good guy on the court. And my hashtag analytics, right? And that's Miles Bridges and PJ Washington, right? So I figured those are the two best players on the team. So I figured that those are the two guys that are also going to benefit greatly from Graham being out. So those are two guys. And then the next category are those people that are just going to get those minutes from Graham not being there. So now we're talking about the Martin brothers, like Cody Martin and Caleb Martin. Or if you want to go even down further, you could try Jalen McDaniels at still in a minimum of 3K. So it depends on your style, you know what I mean, of what type of guy you want to go for in these types of games. I'm kind of inclined to not go for the minutes guys, like the guys with the minutes break, like Kobe Martin and Caleb Martin and Jalen McDaniels. I'm more inclined, along with Terry Rozier, to go with maybe a Miles Bridges or a PJ Washington, provided that there's other value I can get from other games, you know, and that becomes a really important point, you know, like not to look ahead, but it would be nice to know if, like, say Tatum is out or Kemba has a real big minutes restriction, whatever they announced that to be, maybe somebody like, I don't know, who's the guy, the Wanamaker guy that could show up, whatever it is, you know, some other 3,500 guys, if those exist, then I'm less likely to go for these Cody Martins and Caleb Martins or whatever, Jalen McDaniels. But if I do need them, I might have to just bite the bullet and try it. But again, just overall, it's a lot for a 105-point total for these guys. But like you said, it's a really important, you know, situation to deal with. So I do think that Terry Rozier is a very, very good play. He's chalky, but I think that that's chalk worth eating. And you know, the San Antonio's defense is not that great as usual. So I would say Rozier, then Bridges and or PJ Washington, and secondarily I would go to those cheapos. On the other side, again, San Antonio is in the same position they were with LMA being out and, you know, everything being kind of up in the air. Like they gave Eubanks a start yesterday, so he played, you know, some minutes and then whatever. So again, I think it's the same type of deal. Like, I think the obvious play is to go right back to DeRozan. I don't think that there's any reason why we shouldn't. Look, it's the exact same situation. And, you know, he didn't do so great yesterday, but, you know, doesn't mean he's not going to do great today. So he's probably going to be a little chalky again, but he certainly projects well and he's fine. Trey Lyles has been playing like 40 minutes every freaking game. So now we're starting to get into what might Pop do, you know, like in back-to-back games, you're going to run him out there all these minutes again. I mean, if you want to project him for 32-plus minutes, he's probably a pretty good play at 5,200. So he'd be my next guy. And after that, it's, you know, it's roll the dice, you know. So for me, I'd probably go with DeRozan and maybe Lyles, but DeRozan would be my favorite. And I can see variations where even with all these like great games coming up later, that I throw in some Charlotte San Antonio stack and try to put a number up there. You know, it's certainly not not an appealing game, but from a DFS perspective, with all these guys out, this usage could amount to fantasy points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is actually it is a really interesting game on this slate. So the Spurs on the back-to-back is interesting. This is pretty much desperation time for them as a team. They're going to play the guys they think they can win. I mean, look, Pop doesn't try to miss Pop doesn't miss the playoffs. He doesn't understand what tank. There's no such thing for that in San Antonio. They have no precedent for it. They made the playoffs 20 years in a row. They're going to put their best foot forward. So you're going to see minutes out of the guys who they trust. Now, I don't think it's necessarily out of the question. You might see different rotations of guys at the end of games. Rudy Gay is a guy who I would be worried about because of the back-to-back. And I'm worried about maybe his minutes getting cut a little bit. Because I mean, it's just about being effective on these back-to-backs and also traveling not across country, but, you know, kind of close, like from San Antonio to Charlotte. It's not like a quick, you know, jaunt. So I'm sort of on like trying some of these young Spurs along with just flat out just running DeRozan right back. I think we're going to get lower ownership on DeRozan than we should tonight. He was absolutely dreadful last night and didn't take any shots early on, which was really weird. Indiana did a phenomenal job defending them. As slow as Charlotte is, they're not the same defensive team, obviously, that Indiana is. So I'm just heavy on DeRozan. With basically, you'd have sprinklings of Walker, who will get you the most exciting 20 fantasy points you'll ever see in your life, and Bryn Forbes will get you the least exciting 20 fantasy points you've ever seen in your life. And I don't know where I stand with Lyles. I feel like if there's going to be crazy ownership on him, I might want to fade him here. But if there's not, I'm willing to go back there. And I think it's going to be more on the high ownership side. So he's a guy I'll have some of, but I'm not overly interested. Same thing with Patty Mills. Not that he'll be so high owned, but coming off a monster game, shooting around a back-to-back, sure, he's cheap. He gets a salary relief, and we know we've always got a shooter's chance. But I don't know that I can be that excited about it. And same with Derek White. All of these guys are sprinklings for me. The only one I'm really prioritizing is DeMar DeRozan right now. And that's mainly because I am going to be playing at least one, usually two, I think Charlotte players on most of my lineups tonight.
That's awesome.
I think Terry Rozier is yeah, I understand how you can fade him. I just think it's wrong. I at first glance in this slate, I just think that it's a little too much usage to give up on. And while these other guys are going to be on the court, these are not high usage guys that I think the offense runs through Rozier and Bridges, who probably each will be in more than half my lineups. And then right behind them, I have PJ Washington. From there, it's like I have interest mostly in Cody Martin. He's the one I would prefer the most. And I actually think it's pretty significant interest because the minutes he'll get. What I do want to wait to see is if there's some sort of late news and we hear Nicholas Batum. We don't know that he's scheduled to play. He's written in the projections, but hasn't played in a long time. And if he did play, that would throw me off a little bit. The other thing about this game to think about is the size. That's why I don't like Eubanks to take it. I would take another shot if it was a team with two bigs. But I think that they're going to have to play smaller on the Spurs side. They're going to have to play smaller on Charlotte's side. They'll play Bismack some minutes. They'll play Hernan Gomez some minutes. I'm not sure how much they're going to go either route. If they wanted to in this matchup, they legitimately could play Bridges or Washington at the 5. So it just depends on how you think it's going to roll out. I think it's probably worth taking a shot on Hernan Gomez because of the guy who can put up a number even in a short period of time. And I sort of prefer him a little bit over Bismack, but I'm not all that interested in either of those guys. For me, I go it's an easy ranking. It's Rozier's the obvious one, but I think Bridges is the guy who I'm going to have just about as much ownership in, followed by Washington, followed by Cody Martin, and that's pretty much where I'm at for this game. And then followed by Caleb Martin and Jalen McDaniels would be the wild card.
I'd like to add something for the Terry Rozier haters, right? For the people that say, "Oh, he just sucks. I just can't play him because he #sucks," or whatever people like to say. I would like to point out that having played Terry Rozier and faded Terry Rozier, and all of this, one thing I will mention about him is there are games where he shoots like 2 for 15 from the field and still just ends up getting there. I mean, he's just so kind of, I won't say out of control in the wrong way, but he's so out of control and active that he falls on rebounds, he falls on assists, he falls on steals sometimes.
Yeah.
Where if he gets those minutes, you can finish watching him in a game. You're like, oh man, he was awful, and he'll still end up having gotten you 5-6x.
Who was like that yesterday was Donovan Mitchell. I'm looking up. I'm like, Donovan Mitchell has scored. It was like right before halftime. You go, oh, that's his first points of the game for Donovan Mitchell. Then I look at my FanDuel lineup. He's got 20 some odd fantasy points. I'm going,
yeah,
I had no idea.
Yep.
Anyway, but yeah, a good point. I agree, and there's many ways to get there. I also think that Bridges, I really like Bridges in Washington, and I think that they might get a little bit overlooked. And I don't even mind if you're going to play all three of those guys. You want to run it back with DeRozan, but mostly I'm looking at playing 1 to 2, maybe 3 if I include one of the cheaper guys, and then running it back with DeRozan. But I like that quite a bit. I really like this Charlotte side, and I can't emphasize enough that I think this is a great spot for Bridges especially, but PJ Washington as well. These guys can they're offensive minded. They can score. The only thing that worries me about any of these is that there's still a number of bodies, even though they aren't good bodies in Charlotte, but still somebody's gonna take shots. So overall, I would prioritize those guys pretty heavily.
All right, spent a lot of time on that one, but I do think that was important. So Brooklyn against Boston. So Kemba Walker has been, I don't want to say announced whatever, but Kemba Walker went through practice. They're going to play him, I think, and they're going to give him some sort of minutes limit. I don't know if they were specific about what it is. But, I don't think he's playable, certainly on Draftkings. Fanduel, maybe you want to, if that's your thing. I don't like playing guys with minutes limits, but Jack Tatum again. I'm still do this. Jason Tatum, he's somewhat, I guess he's legitimately questionable. I'm not sure, but I'm not. By the way, I'm not with you yet on this idea that he's like some $9,600 guy. But
I never said he was. Wait, first of all, I said it when he was. I called it out when he was like 7K, 7,800.
Right.
I did say. I said, Jason. No, I think he's taking that leap. I think he's a 9. I mean, look at his numbers. What can we argue with? He's put up.
No, I know. I got you.
49 or more every game since I said that when he was 7.8. Jason Tatum has taken the leap. I watched these guys play. You can tell when guys turn a corner. And I'm telling you right now, this guy has turned the corner more than we gave credit for guys like a Siakam turning a corner. And it's rightfully so, solid guys. Jason Tatum is turning a different level of corner. He's launching himself into a position where he's legitimately could be considered one of the future best 10 or 15 players, which is really hard to do with the current makeup of the NBA, and might even be higher than that. He's got a ceiling that's through the roof. I just wanted to make that clear. He's going through, but with Kemba back, look, we're not going to play him at 96 today, but I do think that it's not like it's that crazy to play him at 96. Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, he's going to put up 50 as often, I mean, according to those numbers, more often than not.
Okay, so for those of you, again, who've been watching these things like a while from us, I want you to think for a second. I used to do this too. Like when I would watch content, I see the same guys, you know, I would say, boy, this guy, this content provider is going to give you this guy. This guy's going to go to this guy. This is this guy's favorite. I was wondering if anybody was going to come up with who I liked in this game. And I don't think that people would, because I looked at this game like several different times, and then I looked at the projection systems or whatever, and I don't think I'm going to pick anybody. I'm not going to pick between. I don't think either Levert or Dinwiddie rates to be a good play here. I think that the only place I would even consider is an off the board Jarrett Allen play, maybe at center. But I'm considering just crossing this game off.
For the most part, I agree. Like, you could make arguments for all those guys. I do have a little bit of interest in Allen, but not really like enough to where I'm going to go crazy with it. I think this is basically a cross off for me.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. What if Tatum is out?
I look with the way they're priced up, with assuming that Kemba was out, it's kind of hard to make anyone make sense to me.
Okay. All right. So we can just.
You might even if two of them were out. Then you're talking about playing a 7-1, a 7-3 Marcus Smart. Like, I mean, it's just really hard to do, man.
Very good. All right, moving on. So Clippers against OKC. So from a projection standpoint, this is where I'm at with this game. So you have the OKC guys. I can make cases for the five main guys. And when I say the 5 main guys, I mean 4 starters plus Nerlens Noel. I think they all look like pretty, like just kind of okay plays, like Shea, Chris Paul, Adams, Schroeder, Noel. Nobody that great, but I do have to mark down Noel just because he's 3,300 based on my earlier assessment that I might be looking for $3,300 guys. So he's a guy I would throw in to that mix. On the Clipper side, nobody looks that great. The only guy I would go back to again is going to be Paul George. Now, I'm leaving this to you, Bobby, because there's definitely a lot of stuff to discuss in this game. You know what I mean? With everybody played for both teams pretty much. So you're going to have to tell me what I don't want to say what weight, but where that kind of falls. But aside from that, I do think Paul George at 7,100 is the best play, certainly of the Clippers, and maybe. I'm looking at Patrick Beverley at 3,700, so we're going to talk about that. But I do like Paul George a little bit, and what I might do is play Paul George run it back with one of whoever I end up liking the most from OKC, like Shea, Chris Paul. Now, I'm presuming Danilo's not playing, by the way. I could be wrong about that. So if he's in, then I might end up liking nobody from Oklahoma City, which is kind of dangerous. But again, all these guys look just okay. Nothing a big priority. If I had to, I'd play Paul George on LAC with, maybe Schroeder, I guess would be my favorite on Oklahoma City.
You know what's even funnier about this game is not only do all these players play for the other team, even when they go pick up a guy off of waivers like Reggie Jackson, he played for the other team. Like, this is just it's just like a weird blend of things. Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think that it's a really I get the Kawhi thing. I'm not going to do it myself. In close games, it's hard not to like him, but I just am going to go way heavy on Paul George.
I like it.
I just can't see how not to. If we're going to really think he's going to play over 30 minutes, which I think going based on the last game, there's definitely reason to assume that he will. I just am going to keep playing him. It's too cheap. I like Beverly too a little bit, but I don't know if I'm going to get to a ton of them, but I do think it's like a value option. Like, I don't know. He's solid to me. I'm a little worried about how he could foul out of this game in like 18 minutes. He also could get thrown out along with Chris Paul like they have before. These guys don't. I mean, nobody likes Patrick Beverley on the other side, but because he's a great defender. But mostly, my interest is going to be on the OKC side, other than Paul George. I have mild interest in a few guys. Chris Paul being number one. I would give him a little bit of a – I'm not even going to say the revenge thing because I just think he plays to win games, and that's to him his revenge. Yep. But that's fine with me. Like, I mean, they still might – if Chris Paul in close games is effective. I also like Shea. I think that Shea actually creates – it's funny because the positions the Clippers guard really well don't exactly match up with the way that the OKC runs. So I'm okay with those guys. It's less exciting if Danilo's back. And by the way – if Danilo's back, I'm willing to completely play Danilo. But again, and then mild interest in Noel, but not a game I'm overly excited about. Mostly just Paul George is the main guy with a little Beverly and some running back here and there with Chris Paul or Shea.
Okay, tell me what you think of this logic, whether it's right or wrong. So this is the way I look at this. So I looked at a couple of like overnight takes, and one content provider, one whatever, came up. They really like Reggie Jackson, right? So I went and I kind of looked at it, and I pull up his game logs, and I see, he's had 33 and 27 fantasy points in the last 2 games, which you'd think, oh boy, at 4,500, that's not bad. But this is the way I look at guys like this. So in his last 2 games, I just don't see something that's even remotely repeatable given his like historical skill set. Like 2 games, like in the last 3 games, he's been 8 for 11 from the field combined. Like 2 games ago in that blowout, whatever, he had 8 rebounds and 7 assists in 19 minutes. This is just not something to be projected forward. And 2 blocks in the last game with 3 assists and 4 rebounds. So for me, if for whatever reason, if one person touts him, maybe other people will. If he somehow starts to get a lot of ownership, I'm probably going to stay away from something like that.
There's not one person going to play Reggie Jackson.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, I can't imagine. And if they are, good luck. Great. Good.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So drum roll. Right, yeah. So Minnesota against New Orleans. So 247 point total. Is that right?
Yep.
So we're gonna have to fight again. So we're gonna talk about this. So first of all, on the Minnesota side, I actually kind of only like the top 2 guys, and the top 2 guys. It's very interesting. I just kind of like roll it off as the top 2 guys, and I don't even know if people realize how good this guy is. But I look at Russell and Beasley as like clearly the top 2 guys. Like Beasley's good, man. I mean, he was I remember I was playing with 3K in Denver. You know what I mean? Like this guy is good. Yeah. And I like him and Russell as my 2 favorite options here. I originally in one of these builds I had Juan Hernangomez just because he fit, and I want to pick a Minnesota guy. But projection-wise, he's not my favorite. Okogie maybe. I guess what you'd have to try to figure out is which guy's actual style benefits the most from the New Orleans pace. And I honestly, aside from the 2 guys I mentioned, Beasley and Russell, I just don't know quite the answer. Is it somebody like Culver at 3,500? Maybe. I don't know. But for me, it's really just Beasley and Russell as my 2 guys from Minnesota. The New Orleans thing, I hope you didn't see, somebody else tweet or something like that. What's Zion got to do to win freaking Rookie of the Year? And I said, maybe get more than 4X against freaking Cleveland. You know what I mean? So we're going to have this discussion again about
what did Zion do wrong? What are we criticizing him for here?
For not – no, someone said, what does he got to do to win Rookie of the Year? And I just responded, well, maybe get more than 4X against freaking Cleveland.
He was 11 for 16 in that game. Like, I mean, what do you want? He scored 30 points.
But this is my point. The point is he's 11 for 16, and he's only getting 32 fantasy points.
Yeah, this year is the rebounds.
You're right. So we're going to go back to the question of, does the guy really have a ceiling? And I know you're going to –
Yes, he does.
You reach through the freaking camera and strangled me, but I'm still looking at 40, 32, 40, 40, 36, 40. There's a 50, I suppose. 31, 36, 39. So I'll tell you this. I mean, he's got the right matchup for it tonight. You know what I mean? He's going to have a high-paced matchup, and they're only projected whatever 30, 31 minutes. I definitely think he could have upside from that. And he certainly looks to be, projection-wise, a tremendous play. So I'm going to go with you. I don't even know where you're at yet, but I would say that Zion is, for me, clearly my favorite play in this game and my favorite play on the New Orleans side. Ingram, he's not been doing it for me since Zion got there, if you want to know the truth. So even though he's projecting pretty nicely also, I prefer Zion over him by a decent amount. The one interesting decision I think it's interesting to make, which again, I'm stealing this from somebody else, is I think Derek Favors and Josh Hart, it's a weird the choice between the two of them, because one of them has been closing over the other one with what's his name out, and I think they've been switching that. So they're projecting both these guys for like 24 minutes. I think that one of them, between Favors and Hart, might have upside over those minutes. I just don't know exactly which one. So if you want to do kind of a real fancy, group there to play either Favors or Hart, that's really kind of counterintuitive. But that's something you could do. But for me, it's Zion and more Zion. And I'll just, if he doesn't get the ceiling, whatever, I think he's kind of a lock to get 40 at the least. So I'll be in there.
I mean, all of these teams he's played against, the Lakers twice, best defensive team in the NBA against bigs. Cleveland, who plays slow. Okay. And that was by the way, didn't they win that game by like 40 points? I think
he got his 30 minutes. You know what I mean?
No, but that doesn't matter though, because those minutes are not the same when you're up by 30, where you have to, in a tight game, you're going to pound the ball to Zion basically almost every possession.
Fair enough.
So I don't know. That's just the way I look at it. But I have a worry about Zion in this. This is the first of a back-to-back. They have 7 back-to-backs remaining this season. That's the one thing that worries me about this whole team in general going forward. So in a game that has a pretty huge spread, I could see a way where he's maybe not as much of an integral part of it. But early on, you're going to see him probably going nuts. I don't understand these projections on him exactly. They have him at like less than a point per minute, which he hasn't had in any game this season so far.
Where is this? Because where I'm looking has him at. They have him at 31 minutes projecting for 45 fantasy points.
That's what it should be. I think it's just a misprojection on the site I'm looking at.
Okay.
Because it doesn't make any sense at all. And but if he starts to be chalky, be careful, because that first of a back-to-back, I mean, he might not get fourth quarter run if they blow this team out, which they should. That's the one thing that really worries me about this game, because I want all the pieces. You know how I feel about both these teams and trying to attack them. And it's tricky because I do worry about this one hanging in there, especially because New Orleans is going to try and put their foot down. And they've got a big game in Dallas tomorrow. That's a huge game, actually. So I think that they're gonna. I mean, you're gonna put your best foot forward. They need to win every game. But if they're up by a bunch, I could see guys getting a little bit, not being utilized as much or just not playing as much. If I'm going to be rating the guys from the other side, I think that I would take shots with Culver. He's cheap enough. And, we've talked about Beverly. He's going to play as many minutes, but he's got more of could be much more involved in the offense than Beverly could possibly.
Who?
It's possible.
Who?
Jarrett Culver.
Okay.
Also small forward eligible. Okogie, fine. I'm not going to get too heavily into D'Angelo Russell, even though I understand it. It's just, I'm not there, man. I'm higher on Beasley. He's the one I'll have the most exposure to from this team. Wancho taking a shot is fine, but there's not anybody I'm all that excited about. I would put Beasley as number 1, and I don't really have a close number 2. I guess it'd be Culver and then Okogie. It's tough for me. I really want to like that more on that Minnesota side. Naz Reid. They might need his physicality and his strength to try and play against Zion, although they're basically the same age. I don't really know who else matches up with Zion. Like James Johnson, that seems like a nightmare, even though James Johnson's a good defender. So Naz Reid, somewhere between Naz Reid and James Johnson, probably one of those guys is going to get extra run. Probably be in foul trouble, but I don't know, man. It's a little bit a struggle for me outside of Beasley, and I'm okay with paying $6K for Beasley in the ceiling type matchup. If this game does stay close, I would probably only play Beasley if I'm going to play a Pelican or two. The Pelicans, the priorities are. I know everybody's going to want to play Favors. That's fine. I'll be below the field on Favors. I still think he's fine in a vacuum, but it's just not like I don't feel like I need to do it personally, and I'm not all that excited about it. Ingram, I do love. I like Ingram a lot tonight. I am fine with. I like Lonzo fine, and I know Holiday's numbers haven't been the same. I think it's going to keep ownership off of them. All of these guys to me are really solid plays, and I will be playing some of them. But for me, it's going to be Zion and then Ingram as the main two for sure. That's where I'm at.
You like Alonzo at all?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's a good matchup for him, and he's been good. So I probably should give him a little bit more love than I do. Yeah, he's fine.
All right. Moving on to Golden State, Denver, and I'm very glad that we're going into this game because it reminds me of, again, this happened over the weekend, and and we haven't spoken about it since because there's going to be Saturday games or whatever it is. I will have you know that I did have Dragon Bender revenge against Phoenix when he went 9x, by the way.
That's pretty sick.
I will just let you know that there was multiple. There was Marquise Chris and Dragon Bender in the same game at Phoenix. So I only mention it because I'm looking at this game. I guess the whole country is out. I guess I'm presuming Draymond is still out. I don't know. Boy, if he's out, it's rough business for not that it's not rough business for Golden State anyway in this game, but you got Dragon Bender actually showing up, assuming Draymond is out, as still as a decent value. And you have this Juan Toscano-Anderson showing up as a decent value also. And this is presuming that Bowman's out, Draymond is out, So, yeah, you have game staying close issues to say the least. But these guys are 3,700 if they're going to be starting. Got to really talk about it. Otherwise, on Golden State, I know you're shaking your head. Otherwise, on Golden State, I'm looking at Damian Lee, Marquise Chris. None of these guys are looking that great for me. It could be a rough game. I mean, to say the least. What's it, a 15-point spread or something like that?
Yeah,
at Denver.
Yeah.
So let me give you some before you go through that train wreck. Let me give you a couple of takes on Denver, okay? Because I'm not tossing this game out. There's two ways I want to go in this game. One is I do want to play a couple of lineups with Jokic and Murray, okay? And let the blowout risk hopefully keep the ownership lower. I think that, first of all, I think 3 quarters is probably enough to get what I need out of these guys in this matchup for openers. I think these guys are going to work together and just obliterate this team. So I think this could be one of those games where you see Jokic with 40 fantasy points at the half and people just begging, if they don't have him, that the game blows out enough that they don't see him in the fourth quarter. And then after the third quarter's over, he'll have like 60 fantasy points. And they'll finally go out and they're like, boy, oh boy, he's got 60 fantasy points. What did I do not playing him? So I do think that I'm going to try one idea with Jokic and Murray, the both of them in there, and just hope that they just get enough in 3 quarters. And God forbid, what if Golden State does keep it close? God help them. And the other guy I'm going to play, blowout or not, I'm not interested in this in some of these like low minutes projections for him. I think that they're working Michael Porter Jr. back. I think that he's going to continue to keep getting run wherever he can. I think he's going to be, I don't know how owned he's going to be, but at 4,300, I think he's just a tremendous talent. He's going to be active when he's in the game. And I think he's going to only need 20 minutes to get what he needs, and he could get more. So those are the 2 different routes I'm going to go. And I'm going to go Jokic and Murray in one type of idea, and I'm going to go Michael Porter Jr. as kind of like an individual play regardless.
Sweet. Okay. Who do you want to stack this game with?
I didn't say I wanted to stack the game.
But you kind of did. I mean, if you're going to play Murray and Jokic.
Yeah, so?
Okay. You sound like me all of a sudden.
Wow.
That's
good for me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm on a little bit of a different page than you with this game. Like, I don't.
You were hoping to spend 5 seconds on this game and move on, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't understand who to play from the Warriors other than maybe taking a shot on Toscano-Anderson or Bender, I guess.
Don't play anybody then. Whatever.
They're gonna need size. I'm just trying to figure out how that works. I mean, I don't have Draymond as out, by the way, so I need to do that for sure before I do anything.
Well, I don't want to play him either. I don't want to play anybody. I don't want to play anybody from Golden State. Whatever. Let it be a 126 to 81, and we get enough.
Okay. I don't know if you're getting enough in that situation. I would lean more Millsap in this matchup.
Okay.
I like the price. I like the upside, and I like Michael Porter Jr. That's
all right. So that's something. Michael Porter Jr. We like a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's a good spot for him to potentially have one of those. You know, he could have a big game in this spot, regardless of situation, especially the blowout, actually. And he's a little too cheap. Like, I actually think it's it's kind of odd, actually. I just can't get behind. I mean, behind him it would be Will Barton for me, I guess. And I like Jokic tonight. He's going to crush this team. But I mean, he might not even get three quarters. I'm just going to go other places on the slate, realistically, other than Porter Jr. and a little bit of Millsap. I think that's mostly. Maybe I might end up with a Murray or a Jokic, but certainly I don't think I'm going to do it together. But I like that you're going out there because I don't think that's going to be popular today.
Yeah, and it's something I almost never do. So we'll see how it goes.
All right.
All right. So let's move on then. So Toronto. Wait, is that the next one? Hold on. Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
So Toronto at Phoenix. So are you operating? The projection system I'm looking at is presuming that both Ibaka and Van Vliet are out. But that doesn't mean they're out. That's just what I'm looking at. What are you seeing for those two guys right now?
I have them as in at the moment.
Okay, so like Van Vliet is looking for questionable, similar tag but sat out. So this is going to be something I'm going to actually have to wait on to give him a full analysis of. But but okay, if these guys are out, then it's back to the same dudes, right? So then RHJ is going to rate to be not as good of a play, but kind of an okay play at 4,600. Lowry rates to be okay. Powell will be okay if Van Vliet is out. Pascal Siakam will look good, especially if Ibaka's out. I think if these guys play, again, I'm just, as they say, projecting the projections. You know what I mean? Like, if these guys play, I might end up not having that much interest in the Toronto side outside of the game stack, you know? I'm just going to have to see who ends up in or not. But I think that if both those guys are back in, I think that usage is going to be spread back around, and these guys other guys have been priced up a little bit. And I don't know, maybe I'll end up playing Serge, actually, if Serge plays at 6,100. So that's that. On the Phoenix side, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll go back to Booker. Why not? Buried me the other day, but whatever. I'll go back to Booker. Tough matchup, whatever. But he's still Booker. He can still do anything. And I'll try Ayton again too. I mean, he's been playing well. So one of those two guys. I don't think I'm going to play both of them and spend 16,700 stacking this game if I didn't have a real good run back from Toronto. So maybe one of them though. Maybe Booker. Maybe Ayton. And they both look pretty good.
Yeah, I'm very into Ayton personally. I think he's going to be really popular too. Just these projections are just out of control. I don't even.
What do you have? How many points do you see having projected at?
55.
55?
Ridiculous. I mean, I know they're a joke.
I have it 43.
That seems more reasonable to me. I don't know why these morning ones are so far off. Like
how many minutes do you have?
35.
And me too. So something's off.
Yeah, but like 50 to. I mean, all of a sudden we're going to turn him into like the greatest player ever. I don't know what that is.
One thing I will tell you, by the way, and this is just from having me looked at like a lot of content over the last year or two or whatever, is if you see like a lot of different guys that are like wildly projected like that, then they just haven't updated their stuff yet. You know
yeah, sure.
And I see that a lot. Like last night before I went to sleep, I just saw like really, really the quickest, the earliest projections, and I saw like everybody was rated at like a plus 12 value or something. I'm like, so they haven't really tightened it up yet. So I think that 55 is certainly on the ambitious side.
I like the Ayton though, and I'm fine with Booker if I'm going to play. Like, I really need all those guys to be out for Toronto, to be honest with you.
Okay, good. We're on the same page there.
If they play, I do think I'd still have interest in Lowry and Ibaka though. Those are the two that I sort of have the most. Like, if the two guys who are questionable, of course. If they don't,
is Lowry questionable?
What?
Is Lowry questionable?
Not that I know of.
Oh, I thought you said the two questionable guys, Lowry and Ibaka. Okay.
No, I said Ibaka and Van. Oh, I meant to say Ibaka and Van Fleet if I didn't.
Okay.
Those would be the guys I would lean towards, but I don't, if they're out, I do think Siakam and Lowry are. I think Lowry's not a great play, but I think Siakam is a really good play. So he's the one I'd give the edge to if they're out. But I'll tell you what, I'm not wildly excited about this Toronto side, assuming they're in. And by the way, Norman Powell being back is going to take away shots. So it's not like when these guys were out before, we could just load up. We can't load up on them without Norman Powell. Norman Powell takes a lot of shots. So it changes things. And also Anunoby's found this new, I don't know, he's just been going absolutely nuts. So I'm leaning, I don't have anybody above 20% written in here on my thing. And that person is Ibaka. Person is Siakam. And that's only assuming that we have everybody out. But I'm not overwhelmingly excited on that side. I do think that on the Phoenix side, I like Ayton quite a bit. I like Booker quite a bit. That's pretty much it. I think that Ayton will be owned and Booker will not. And I think Booker, that's just kind of funny to think, like when you see the same price and all that, like maybe we should play Booker when he's not going to be owned here.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. It's been a while since he's had a big game with Ayton back. It has sort of killed him a little bit. That's the only thing that worries me. So I don't want to get heavy on Booker, but 20% of him I think would make some sense on the slate where he'd probably be, 8-10%?
Yeah. I think we've covered this game, no?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you didn't like any of that Minnesota stuff, you wanted to do something else, you could go to Sacramento at 10 o'clock p.m. and get a game against Washington. So that's always a lot of fun. So where I'm coming in Washington is just not the normal, I guess. So first of all, I will say that at 10-4, Beal is not showing up as a tremendous value, but, hashtag I don't care, one of those things, he's always can have 70 points and that's just the way it is. So I'm certainly not telling you not to play Beal regardless of where he shows up on your projection models. Maybe he's low owned as a result, and he is just sometimes just got to play the ceiling and then median be damned. So I like him. And the other guy is just too cheap on for Washington is going to be Thomas Bryant at 3,800. I don't know if he's going to end up being popular or whatever it is, but if they're going to give him 20, 25 minutes or something like that, that's a big range, obviously. But
I don't know if they'll give him 20 minutes, though. That's the only thing that worries me.
Okay, because I have him projected like 23 minutes, so I guess that's why he's
at 18.
Yeah, so I mean that is a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
But Thomas Bryant would be the other guy I would have from Washington. I will also like to say, just again from an observation perspective, that Shabazz Napier is not bad. He's a good. I mean, look, their team's bad, so it's not going to help them real. Actually, they're actually making a little bit of a run, Washington, right? But Shabazz Napier, when he comes on the court, he's pretty good. I don't think I'm going to get to him today, but he's certainly been doing well. So that's really all I'd be wanting to do in Washington is Beal and maybe some Thomas Bryant if I can just do a little more research and tap into what's going to happen with him a little more. And then on the Sacramento side, I am going right back with De'Aaron Fox. He's going to be my main guy over there, and I try to do a little game log watching for some of these other guys. And I just don't see Hield and Bogdanovic just kind of doing it for me. But then I start thinking, but this is freaking Washington. You know what I mean? Like this is a matchup where these guys just have to get some kind of bump. So I think in game stacks, I might go to either of these two guys, Hield or Bogdanovic. I'm not going to go to Barnes. I'm not going to go to Bazemore. I'm probably not going to go to Giles. And on DraftKings, I'm not going to go to Bielitsa, I don't think, although I will go to him on FanDuel. So for me, it's really Fox is a big priority in this game. I think it's a perfect environment for him. And he's going to be probably popular as well. But I do really like him a lot. So it's Fox. And then, you know me, I'm kind of a sucker for this. So I'll probably do a Fox Hield or a Fox Bogdanovic just kind of for fun and run it back with Beal, something like that.
Yeah, I have interest in all those guys. Highest interest in Fox and Hield. I have the same ownership on both of them, but I like them both.
Okay.
And I think they're both like terrific tournament plays. I actually think the projections on Fox are going to show up a little bit lower than you think tonight.
I like Alex Len.
Do they need him?
They don't need him. It's a little worrisome. But I say that I don't need him, and then I look at the minutes that Washington's been playing their bigs, and either Bryant or Wagner or I didn't even realize tonight we had – okay, I messed up on something on my projections. Yeah, I think Bryant is a better play than – I'm just going to count that the minutes they're projecting are off a little bit. No, they don't need him necessarily, but I think if Bryant does get more minutes, I don't know. It's a little worrisome, but like he's sort of come into his own. Like he's played really well in the minutes they've given him so far, and I just think he's worth taking a shot on at 4,300. Like I'm not like in love with it, but I would rather play the Fox Healed, and then Bogdanovich would be the next guy for me. I'm fine with any of them, but I prefer Fox and Healed the best above all of them.
Yeah, you made a good point. I mean, Len has been making the most of his minutes. I mean, he's been very efficient when he's come in there. I played him, we both played him that one time when he was like 1% or something like that. And
great.
He was very efficient in the small amount of minutes they gave him. I played him hoping he would get more minutes than that. And he got there pretty handily in a short amount of time.
Yeah. I think that, there's pretty much nobody else in this game. It's a weird slate because I started off with a bunch of things I like in the low total game, and then it's hard to find things we like in the big total games.
That's what I was saying.
I agree that Thomas Bryant, I'm starting to think more and more about this. Like, Mahinmi's out? I didn't have that official word, so I just think that should open up his minutes. I also think Davis Bertans is in play, just a tournament flyer, but at 5.4 can certainly shoot you into a tournament, and especially in a good matchup like this. So I don't mind him at all. And I don't mind taking a shot on Troy Brown, hoping that his minutes somehow resurface out of nowhere. But they really haven't been. Rui hasn't put up that ceiling game in a long time. He's had some quarters where he put up in 25 fantasy points, but hasn't had that big game. I'm willing to take a shot that he might. Bradley Beal, if there's tons of value that ends up opening up, you can go ahead and do it. It's getting to the price point where it's a little tricky, but at the same time, I mean, he really is producing. It's not like we haven't seen less than 50 from him in his last 5. He's put over 60 twice and over 70 twice. Like, that sounds pretty good to me. I'll take it.
I'm with you, right?
But do we need to go that route on this slate where we don't have this, like, screaming value? Maybe not. So, real quick before we jump over to FanDuel, I just want to go through some of my own.
Wait, hold on a second here.
Oh, we forgot a game. Sorry.
We have, like, a possible, this used to be a really good game. Philadelphia.
I'm excited about this game. I just forgot about it.
I mean, we have Magic and Worthy going against Dr. J and Maurice Cheeks. I mean, this is a big game. I mean, this could be like a redo of the finals like several different times. So we should definitely give this a little bit of respect, even though it's a freaking 13-point spread. So
where no player's price on Philly makes any sense whatsoever.
Well, meaning what exactly? So first of all, right. So Josh Richardson, I have is out.
Yeah.
And Embiid remains out. So the two guys that I like from this game, I mean from Philadelphia, maybe 2.5. You have to talk me into the third one. So one guy I never play and one guy I have no problem playing. One guy I like Alec Burks at 4,400. I just figure with Josh Richardson out, he's going to get extra minutes, and he's very active, and they're going to certainly need a lot of activity. So I do like Alex Burks. What is his? Is he 4,400? I thought he was 4,400.
Yeah, 44.
So I do like him. And the other guy that I like is Gross, but they used to tell me that like the Lakers play big, so they need bigs to play against them. And I'll try Mr. O'Quinn again at 3,100. So those are the two guys that I'm actually interested in Philly. I don't want to pay 8,200 for Harris. I don't want to pay 7,000 for Horford. Those are the two kind of like weirdo plays that I like in this game. And I don't want to and this might be the dangerous one. I don't know if I'm ready to do 6,300 for Shake Milton, although he's been certainly worthy of it. I just don't think I'm going to do it. So for me, it's going to be O'Quinn, Gulp, and Alec Burks, Gulp. So yeah. I guess I'll go to LA. LA for me. Wait, it's Anthony. All right. So obviously this all depends on Anthony Davis, whether he's in or out. if he is in, I might play him. Boy, oh boy. If he's out, see, here's the problem with him out. Like, even LeBron doesn't look all that great. So if he's out, I'd be more inclined to do something like play, what's his name, McGee or Howard, somebody. Oh, Howard's, he's 4,400. Maybe Kuzma. I really have to see if he's out. Maybe Markieff Morris.
I think Kuzma would be the play if he's out, personally.
You think so?
Along with taking a shot on Rondo for sure.
Oh, if Davis is out?
I said Davis. Yeah, if Davis is out.
Oh, I thought Rondo only gets the bump if LeBron would be out.
In general, that's the case, but I would take a shot on it. I'm just talking about, look, I don't love a lot of these cheap plays, and I think that he's going to get on the court, and he could take – I mean, we've seen it happen in so many weird games randomly, and I just think this game could be one of those kind of games.
You like any of that Philly nonsense or no?
Man, doesn't feel great. I do like Alec Burks,
okay.
And I like Korkmaz a little bit.
All right.
I'm okay with guys who are going to be able to try and shoot me into a tournament. You know what I mean? Like, right. I just want that. I want that upset. I like the O'Quinn call. I actually think if Pele wasn't playing, or Pele, however you pronounce his name, I actually think that I would be more into this play because I think they are going to have to match up big. And I don't really see, like, you could have Horford. Yeah, you could play Horford on them, but then who guards Davis? You know what I mean? Like,
maybe that could be the thing. Like if Davis plays, then I'll play O'Quinn. If he doesn't play, I won't play.
You know who probably we're overlooking here is Mike Scott. I think Mike Scott might be the play here because he's going to get run. They need to play too big. So it's going to be somewhere between him and O'Quinn where they get that other big from, or whatever the minutes of Pell or whatever he plays. So I kind of think that's interesting. Like, because even if Horford plays 35 minutes, which we don't even know if he will, how do you put you're going to put Tobias Harris on Anthony Davis? That's not going to work. Not that Mike Scott's going to work, but at least the position is, makes a little bit more sense. Because then if you put Harris on him and then you're not going to play big, I guess you could put Thibault on LeBron, but he's only going to play 19 minutes. Like, I just am trying to figure out how their rotation. They're not going to put Korkmaz on LeBron. Yeah, I think there is a chance they have to go a little bit bigger here than they want to. And yeah, I certainly don't mind that. I worry about this game also, too, a little bit. But, I mean, yeah, basically Burks is the most interesting, followed by Scott to me. These are not high, I'm not playing these in a lot of GPPs. O'Quinn, Korkmaz, those are the guys who I would look at, along with Glenn Robinson, just because he might get a minutes boost, but I don't really like playing him even. I mean, he is basically the minimum, so you can argue that. But
if Davis is out, do you like Markieff Morris at all?
That's an interesting one. I actually do. So if Davis is out, I would play a little bit of Markieff. I wouldn't go nuts with it though. They have a pretty.
There are all these 3,400 guys that are just kind of like, ooh, yeah, you know what I mean? Like guys like that.
Yeah, it's true. There's nobody to feel particularly safe with. But you've got a 3,700. I mean, I think a Kogi is reasonable at 35. I think that Martin is reasonable. There's just other plays I'd rather look at, even Jalen McDaniels, rather than these guys and speculate. I would probably rather go those routes than play some of these guys.
Well, let me add. I mean, honestly, not to compare two guys on the slate, but if Davis is out, I would feel a little more comfortable with Markieff Morris than Caleb Martin, for example. No. Okay.
No, he's only going to. I mean, what's he going to play? 15 minutes? 20 minutes?
Morris?
So they're going to play Morris. They don't need a true three. Like, there's no reason for him to play more because, a true four. LeBron plays the four naturally. Like, they play a big man almost all the time, except for to close games. So Morris would get some minutes, but if LeBron goes out and Morris only gets 14 minutes, why do we think he'll get more with Davis out? I actually think it would be the opposite. But it could go out differently. That's just the way that it would make sense to me.
Okay.
All right. So before we get over to Fanduel, because I've got to run in just a little bit. We've got. I just want to go through some ownerships real quick. I've got Terry Rozier and Miles Bridges, my highest owned players, followed by Paul George, followed by PJ Washington, followed by De'Aaron Fox, Zion Williamson, Buddy Hield, DeMar DeRozan, DeAndre Ayton, Brandon Ingram, Cody Martin, Caleb Martin,
Then you get into the Beasley, Burks, Siakam if the other guys are out, Lyles, Ibaka. I'm not all excited about the bottom part. I'm pretty much going to stay focused on the guys I have at the top of my list. So let's jump over to FanDuel if you don't mind.
Sure.
Unless there's anything else you want to add on DraftKings.
No, that's fine.
By the way, Tatum is now out, so on FanDuel, I think that makes a much bigger difference than it does on DraftKings because you're going to get 2 great plays on FanDuel because of this.
Well, hold on. Let me just give me a second and we just refresh my my FanDuel stuff on the other screen. So I'm just presuming without even looking that at FanDuel that it's going to be the same guys that always pop on FanDuel for the Celtics.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh wait, what is this? Yeah. So Hayward and Jaylen Brown are just there you go. Oh my, also Tice maybe a little bit. Interesting. All right, so you want you want to do
let's go
position by position again?
Real quick, yeah.
Okay. So going position by position again, I was actually I was kind of prepared already for this. And I actually did look at early kind of ownership projections to make kind of some pivots and calls and stuff like that. But at the point guard position was not a place where I went off the board. So my 2 favorite point guards were going to be probably, I guess, 2 of the chalkiest guys on the slate, being Rozier and De'Aaron Fox. And I think there's a decent gap to my next favorite. My next favorite actually would be Kyle Lowry. And then after that, it's kind of a mess for me. I'd be like Jamal Murray, Chris Paul, guys like that. But I'd be very, very content, honestly, with these 2 point guards. Fox is in a tremendous matchup, projecting well. Rozier is just, as we discussed on DraftKings, just in a kind of smash spot. And I just feel as though I don't need to take shots against these guys if I don't have to.
Yeah, it's a weird situation because I really like some other guys I didn't like on DraftKings. Like Kyle Lowry at 6.9 seems kind of ridiculous, especially if you get the other injury news. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I have Rozier so far ahead number 1. I really like Lowry. I don't mind taking a shot on Chris Paul or Monty Morris. Like I know it's a weird one. We didn't talk about him before. But Monty Morris has been getting the minutes, and it's a really good matchup, and he could get blowout run here. He's 4.3 and going to lead you to a very different build. And actually projects really well, but I don't think people are going to be that into him tonight. So I like that. I like sort of going that way a little bit. Well, Murray and all those guys make sense fine. Like Chris Paul I like a little bit. I'm just trying to find pivots from some of the guys you mentioned. Lonzo Ball I like a little bit. Again, these are just like little bits, though. Nothing to go crazy with. I do think the price on Dinwiddie is interesting. So I would consider him, but mostly it's going to be the guys you mentioned. Those are some pivots for you, but I don't really feel like I need to pivot here. I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to play the main chalk for the most part. Maybe throw in another guy if my lineup's a little too chalky.
Okay, so at shooting guard, I guess it depends on what kind of where you're looking for ownership. But I mean, one place I'm looking has D'Angelo Russell being the highest owned shooting guard, and I'm not too into that. If you want to know the truth, I mean, he's fine. He's one of my top, 5 or 6 guys, but to be the highest owned guy, I probably would go elsewhere. Like for example, compared him to kind of an equally, I would say equally chalky, but kind of an equally chalky DeRozan. I probably prefer DeRozan than D'Angelo Russell. A little bit different price, actually pretty much the same. But given the fact that that you like Lowry, for example, I'm going to throw in that. I mean, he's obviously going to be pretty popular, but I think Devin Booker's really, really strong here at 7,500. I didn't put him in this main lineup, but I do think that Devin Booker looks very, very strong, and he's going to get some ownership. But I really do like him, especially if you're going to run back something like Lowry. I think that makes a lot of sense. But the 2 guys I put in here as kind of like lower-owned guys, I think lower-owned guys, is Malik Beasley at 5,500 for all the reasons I discussed him on DraftKings. I mean, he's really good, and I think he's clearly the second option on Minnesota. And 5,500 is really, really cheap. And if D'Angelo Russell is going to get a lot of ownership, I think that Beasley could be a decent, pivot off of him, just from a perspective of, he takes Russell shots sometimes, you're going to be in good shape. So if he ends up being on the lower owned side, I think he's a tremendous play. And the other guy I came up with was, I don't know why, but this is I'm kind of into Dennis Schroeder here. 5,300. He's going to be again, and the way I look at it, as I look at my guys, I see how close they are, and then I just kind of scroll down the ownership list and see, all right, so who of my guys that I like kind of the same are the lowest owned of all those guys? And Schroeder just kind of showed up for me. So I think that my obvious plays are going to be Booker and DeRozan. I think my fade is probably going to be Russell. And I think my kind of lower owned guys, if in fact going to be lower owned, is going to be Beasley and Schroeder. Yeah,
because we got to move fast, I'll go real quick. I'm just going Beasley is my number one, followed by Russell, Booker, DeRozan, and Van Vliet. Those are the main guys I'll be using. I might throw in one of the cheapies here and there if I need the savings.
Okay, so at small forward, this Tatum news made both Hayward and Brown very strong plays, and they're also, I presume, just as usual, going to be chalky. They're not in my lineups right now because I just didn't put them in before I got that news. So I'm going to review the two other guys that I like, who I think are probably going to get ownership, but maybe not as much because of Hayward and Brown now. And that's going to be Ingram and Siakam. And as you see, I'm starting to gravitate towards both these games as with multiple players, right? So we already talked about Lowry, already talked about Booker, and Siakam now shows up as another Toronto guy. And as I already talked about Beasley, and as we're going to get to maybe Zion later, that Minnesota-New Orleans game where it was kind of hard to come up with a good way to play it over on Draftkings. It looks to be a little bit easier, I think, over here on Fanduel, I guess. So I do like Ingram over here. So I put Ingram and Siakam in this lineup, but certainly Hayward and Brown are good plays as well.
Yeah, I for me, it's this is the most loaded position that at least that we've talked about so far. I love a lot of guys in this situation. So Paul George is my number one.
Paul George, okay.
He's 6,800. It's just ridiculous. Let's play him. Jaylen Brown and Gordon Hayward would be my 2 and 2A, followed by by Mikal Bridges, and then Brandon Ingram. And then a guy who I think you need to try and get some exposure to. This Boston game is very playable over here, which is weird. And it's a pretty good total. So Taurean Prince is 4K.
Ooh, that's
a guy like Kobe Martin. Yeah, let's go with Taurean Prince. And he's not going to be owned either, I don't think, because there is a lot of options. Like guys like Tobias Harris are good plays too. There's a lot of good plays at small forward, but mainly the guys I mentioned. You ready to jump to power forward?
Yep. So power forward, again, this is going to be, again, on the chalkier side, I imagine. But again, as part of game stacks, again, I'm still gravitating to this same game. Is Zion is, 8,200. He's fine. He's probably my favorite play if you want to know the truth. So he would be for my first play. Now these other guys are fine. Like Horford's fine. Anthony Davis, if he plays, is fine. Lyles again is, I guess, okay. But I'm kind of inclined to drop down and play Bielitsa at 4,800. He's just very, very cheap over here. It's a really good matchup with Washington, and if he somehow gets ignored, I would certainly think he could have a really, really strong game here at maybe lower ownership than some of these guys. I don't even have to run him back with Beal or anything like that. I could just kind of play him by himself. But I do have Fox in this lineup also. And again, I don't need to play, like, I don't want to say overpriced, but a high-priced Beal to justify playing both Fox and Bielitsa together. I have no problem playing the two of them.
Yeah, Fox, Bielitsa, yeah, I totally agree with all that. The guys who I'm looking at the most, Naz Reid, again, trying to get exposure to that game over here on FanDuel where it's harder on DraftKings. Naz Reid, PJ Washington, sticking with my Charlotte guys against a pretty putrid defense by the Spurs. Bielitsa, Horford, a little bit of Zion over here. Less interested in than I was over there. But that's where I'm at.
At center, I have as usual, I have 4 different ideas, and it's very clear for me. So the best play for me is DeAndre Ayton. He's a really, really great mix of price and value and all that stuff, and he fits. And he also fits along some of these game stacks I'm looking to play. So Ayton's the best play. I don't know where ownership's going to come in. if you want to drop down a little bit, Steven Adams, as usual on FanDuel, is a very solid play. I don't think he's going to win me anything, but he's going to hold the rest of my lineup together if the rest of them kind of just get, smash. So that's another price point. The two other ways you could go for me is you want to play down a little bit more and not play Zion, for example. You could play the opposite. You could go with Derek Favors at 5,300. So that's one. The other thing, and then the fourth thing, if I'm going to stay on brand a little bit, not even on brand, but like off brand, but off on sites, is if you want to be a psycho, you could pay 10,300 for Jokic, and hope he gets more than 3/4 of run. And even if he does only get 3/4 of run, I still think he can get 60 in those 3/4 against this team. So for me, 8 would be my favorite play. But if you want to, deviate lineups, which I'm certainly going to do, Adams, Favors, and Jokic should be my others.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's the way I would go mostly. I would throw one guy in that I'm going to have a tiny bit of exposure to is Montrezl Harrell.
Okay.
That's it, though. Like, I really hate this position. This is a terrible position. Derek Favors, play him and get your 25 and get out of there. Like, this is other than if you're not going to play DeAndre Ayton, you're just hoping you can sneak away with something because everybody else sucks. Like, that's pretty much just the long and the short of it. The one really, 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 really weird play that may not play 1 minute tonight, but is probably worth noting if you're going to try and take a wild card shot on a guy like who I'm going to throw in there, by the way, because I want a tiny bit of why can't I not think of his name right now? The center, Thomas Bryant. I think that I would probably be willing to take one shot on Enes Kanter and just pray that he gets the minutes tonight. Brooklyn can play you off, but they also play a little bit bigger than most teams. So you could get foul trouble from Tice. Maybe you get some Kanter minutes early. Maybe he's playing well. I certainly think it's interesting enough on a terrible center slate to play both the end and the other one.
All right, I'll leave you with this gross take. So if you wanted to, like, if in fact Bryant turns out to be popular somehow, I don't know, Bryant turns out to be popular or something like that, you could try a lot of these 3,500 guys just for fun. Like, you could try McGee at 3,800 if there's no Davis for fun.
That's true.
You could try, like, if Mahimi really gets ruled out, you want a real direct pivot, you could try Moritz Wagner at 3,500 for fun. You could go back to your Drew Eubanks at 3,500 for fun. Like, there are guys you could play. I just don't
stick with my guys.
What's that?
I would rather stick with the Kanter and Bryant.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Anyway, man, good job, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. We usually do both shows, but we tried to do it. We had a little time constraint, so we had to get it both done. Sheets, any final thoughts before we get out of here? It's a nice lineup.
No. I think, if, again, we go live later, we'll come up with more stuff. But if not, I think we're pretty self-explanatory.
All right, guys. Good luck out there. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.